Hey y'all, we're back out in the garage, done for the day here on Sunday. We're gonna go in and watch some evening church. Like I said, got that tank back from Rich, and you can see where I tapped on it as I was using that pry bar through the tank hole to pull a dent out of here, and it's nice and flush. I was showing it to Rich. I was all proud of myself, and we noticed there's it cracked. Well, not where he welded it, but where somebody else had welded it. He was just trying to clean it up and ended up probably removing too much of it. We don't need this tank for fuel. We're just gonna put water in it if we ever race anywhere where we need to make weight. But we don't want it to leak. And if we sell it, we want to pass it on to somebody with two tanks that hold fluid. So this is gonna have to get addressed. We're gonna have to get that fixed. Got all the pan tabs on the cart. Put 10 extra pan tabs on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to hold the floor tray that we're going to put on here. Then all the rest we had to do was do some welding up in here. And these had been cracked and broken, fixed, repaired a bunch of different times. And what I ended up doing, Rich came over and welded it up. I ground all the old weld and thought he could put some nice pretty weld on there that we could go ahead and paint this thing. We did it twice, and he ended up burning through a tube. And so as you see, we went ahead and sleeved what we had with solid 5/8 round stock. We've done this with Nerf bars, the whole 9 yards. What this is going to allow me to do, and I got this idea from the old Hartman copy, or I call it a Hartman copy, that we bought, or my first go-kart we bought from the Bashes. It was actually more like a Hegar or a Hooper copy, which the headrest tube actually wasn't mounted to a backrest. The cart didn't have a backrest at all. It had tubes like this, but they went right down into the Hartman axle housing, that 1.5-inch housing or whatever, with the turned metal cups on the end for the 1-inch bearings for the 1-inch axle, right? It literally came right off of there. The headrest tube came right off that axle housing. And so these tubes actually on that cart, and that's where I got the idea from. I sort of remembered they went into a piece of tubing that was actually welded to that axle housing, right? Like this. They slid right in, and this was welded to the axle housing. This just slid in. So you had this slip fit welded up here, but when the cart flexed, see, this is where we're having all these problems with this thing cracking and breaking, because the cart wants to flex, and this cheap thin tubing that gets welded and cracked is trying to hold that process up, and in doing so, it fatigues and it breaks. And the last thing I want to do is paint and clear coat this cart, put all this work into stripping and painting this go-kart chassis, and then having to scrape the paint off it and weld on it. That's really going to smoke my rear. So we went to the old seat from the F-125 Emmick. This is a 2005, I think Jim Fry said it was, 2005 or 2008 Emmick. Jim Farr actually had got this cart from, one of Robbie Harper's buddies in Florida that runs a twin. I can't remember his name, or I can see his face, can't remember his name. Anyway, this was Brandon Fry's cart. It went from Brandon to his buddy in Florida that runs a twin. It went from him to Rob Harper, from Harper to Jim Farr, from Jim Farr over here. Jim cut the seat out thinking they were going to use that cart as a Yamaha single. And it's too big and beefy and too stiff probably for a Yamaha. But when we got the chassis, the seat came with it. I just cut that portion of it out to use here. And I think what I want to do is maybe weld these pieces to the backrest and leave that slip joint fit here. What we'll do is we'll weld a piece of that bigger. This is that DOM that I used. It went inside the end of the chassis on the right to sleeve up the four banger. This stuff fits right over here real nice, right? We literally cut it in half, weld a piece you know, to one of these stubs, right? We weld it onto this stub here and use this in solid stock as well. That'll just beef that whole thing up. And it would be a slip fit. I mean, here it's an easier deal. If we try to do it here, we could do it here, but on this one, it's a great big radius in here. It's not as tight as this one. So you can see this little elbow is actually cut and welded in here. They did the same thing with this seat here. Look at all the little kicks and bends are cut and welded in, man. I can't imagine Emmick would do that, but you know, somebody did. This one here is actually the reason I didn't use this side. It's got a tighter bend here, but it's broke. It had broke again with the cart flexing. This being the backrest, it cracked, and that's why they put this gut. They welded it, and then they put this gusset in here, and welded a piece of key stock, quarter-inch key stock across it to keep it from breaking again. So it's been a problem on a new Emmick, on a new cart. It's been a problem on the old Zip Kart, the Emmick copy. We aren't going to have this problem. This is where the difference between restoration and modification comes in. We can't restore it because it's just going to fail again. So we need to fix this problem once and for all. Couple different things we could do. We could do like what Hartman did after it was sold to, I believe, the Gene Brown or the Browns in Texas. The seat, instead of being welded in, was literally bolted in. There was right, left, or male, female solid stock end like this, right? That was it was welded in the end, and it had a well, here, let me show you. I'll put you down. It part of one side would be cut away, and then the opposite side, whether it was welded to the chassis or whatever, had this same thing, but it was cut in the opposite direction, and they run a bolt through it. So it was bolted together. And the bolt would tend to give and rotate. We've done this before with Nerf bars and with our front bumper on the RPM chassis that we built. We used Heim joints. We'd use a Heim joint here, weld a nut in the end of the tube, and use a Heim joint. That way it allowed some flexibility without one, binding up the cart, and two, in this case, fatiguing and breaking. This tubing that they use is so paper thin. The wall thickness is so thin that it doesn't take very long for that stuff. You know, once you put heat in it welding, right next to the weld, it's going to fatigue and break, and that's what happens. So little thought going into this. I really was bummed out. I wanted to be hanging plastic tomorrow, getting ready to prime paint, all this stuff. Doesn't matter. The gas tank is done. Give up the ghost on me now. It needs more work, and now the chassis needs more work. So we're still ahead of schedule. We wanted to be done with the paint and ready to start reassembling this thing by the 1st. It's still early. You never know, but rather find it now than get this thing painted, take it down to, say, over to Grattan in April or down to Mid-Ohio the second time we drive it or run it and have it break and have to, you know, remove a bunch of paint and weld and grind and weld and all that. So let's just get it done and get it done right the first time, right, guys? So that's it. That's our little update. Thought we were going to be making ground today, and we actually went backwards. So that's it. Sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug, right? You know what I mean? That's it. We'll keep plugging away at it, and we'll bring you some more as it gets done. That's it. Hang in there, folks. God bless. Godspeed. We're praying for you.